Craig Brain is not your brain or my brain. Love it or hate it or something in between. Welcome to the squishy, alien middle inside of this dude's skull. Take a peek. Take a peek.
Welcome back to Craig Brain. I'm wrapping up this section of family and friends. And this was started with a note I wrote to myself, sent it to myself from my notes on email. And then I thought, instead of sending it to Jeanette, I actually printed it out. And we were going out on my Christmas experience that I talked about. And my experience that Jeanette got from me was a hotel in LA, dinner at Bazaar Food, which is just ridiculous. Our favorite restaurant in Vegas. This guy has a flagship restaurant in LA. And then we were going to hang out, do something, spend the night, no kids. So it was Jordan Peterson. It was, it was a great night all around. And during dinner, I was like, hey, I got this other thought. Let me share it with you. And at one of the mastermind groups that I was a part of, there was a personality test that they had us take. And like I said, I love these things, but I've done a lot of them. And this one I'd never heard of. And I was like, okay, whatever. I didn't get the questions. And then you get the results. And we went through it. And the big wow moment for me was helping you decide kind of, are you a pioneer or are you a builder? Which was interesting because in a room, this is the marketing kind of the Jeff Walker group that I'm in. Most of the people in that room are pioneers, and they frown on builders in the room because it's normally like the CEO or the entrepreneurial, spirited person that started it, the leader of the organization, the mouthpiece of the organization, and they're normally not like love building something. They like starting it, but like not in the like me, like not in the weeds. And there were some jokes about it, like, oh, if we had too many builders in the room, like we'd never like they would squash all the dreams because they're like, no, that's cost too money, or you can't think like that. And I got my printout. I was like, okay, that's cool. But I kind of know me and I know myself enough to know that. And so I didn't have my family take that test like I did with the Colby. They all took the Colby. But with them, I was like, hey, fill out, where are you on this list? It was super fascinating, like for my family. So I got Nolan, who's 16. I got Elise, who's 13. And then I got Jeanette, who's 40-something. But she's my wife. And then in that order, there was Pioneer, Craig. And then there was like Nolan kind of next to that. And then there was Elise on the other side of that, which was slanting towards builder. And then on the far side, there was Jeanette. So with the four of us on our family, you kind of have like all the bases covered, if that makes sense. Like both kids got a little bit of each of us where they're not totally polarizing on one side or the other. And there's some other things that factor into those two words. But I was like, that makes sense. So I just on a plane ride had the kids like just pick the number, like pick where you're at. And then I saw it on a linear line of like our family. And it was like, oh, wow, that's why Jeanette's never going to be me and I'm never going to be her. But for 20 years of our marriage, I'm like, well, if you would do this, well, if she would do that, who would do what she does for me? Like if I did that, who would do what I do for her? But I think there's so much wrestling in like, well, let's turn our spouse into us, or let's turn this person that works for me into me. Well, no, you need somebody in all different positions. And so I love sports, so I'm going to talk in sports terms. So actually, Dave and I we're actually talking about this one. And I was like, you know what? Ultimately, you can call it a pioneer, but I don't even like talks like that. Like pioneer and builder. Like I don't talk in construction terms or, pioneer, what would that be? Thanksgiving terms, like whatever. Like, so I was like, no, ultimately I'd be the quarterback. Like if I played football, I want to throw you the ball. I want to be the one calling the plays. Yeah, I want to call my own plays too. Like literally, I don't want the coach calling in. I don't want Pete Carroll telling me to throw the ball on the 1 yard line when I have beast mode next to me. No, Pete Carroll, take those lame shoes off that you wear, the Monarchs. turn your headset off, stop chomping your gum, because I hate the Seattle Seahawks. And I was so glad your dumbass made that call that you did, the worst call probably in Super Bowl history, to throw the ball on the 1 yard line with beast mode, who you didn't want to win the Super Bowl for you. Because he's crazy, you think, but he's so awesome. And you threw the pick, and Malcolm Butler, like, no one saw me freaking out. That was the year that the Packers missed the onside kick. We were there. You can find a clip online and see me and Nolan in a poncho in disbelief watching the Packers blow yet another opportunity to make it into the Super Bowl. Oh, so like awful. But redemption. Pete Carroll threw, like, you called that play and you lost and Brady won. Brady wouldn't go, he'd probably even go Belichick, no, dude, we got beast mode. Oh yeah, that's why you're Tom Brady. Russell Wilson didn't have the chops to do that yet. Anyways, I want to call the plays. I need some help. I'm not that guy. And I want to build a freaking great team where you have beast mode that you can hand the ball off to. So I was thinking about that in analogy. And even to Dave, I was like, what would you be? Like wide receiver, running back, offensive line, defense? He's like, I don't play football. He's like, I'd be Marty McFly. And I was just laughing. He was like, when we were talking in jersey talk, like if we had a jersey, what would be on the back of yours? And so for me, it's like in life or the things I do, like I would say as a pioneer or somebody like that, like, no, I'd want to be the quarterback. Dave would want to be Marty McFly. You know, what do you want on the back of your jersey? Like, you do you be you. And that's the dumbest t-shirt to wear if you're caught wearing that. But I think it does mean something. And like, don't be me. Don't play football and talk in football terms when you know nothing about football. Talk in the language that you know. And that discovery of that was like, Jeanette is so different than I am, but she is so needed. And yet we spend so much time trying to turn each other into ourselves rather than embrace that. Hey, guess what? Like, we don't need another, like if you're Tom Brady, you don't need another quarterback. You could use beast mode. You could use Gronk. You could use Edelman. You could use Belichick for sure. And you could use a killer defense so you can be on the field more. Packers, man, we just got Aaron Rodgers. And it's like, come on, like we need more than just the best quarterback that's ever played. Like, get him a team, Packers, come on. But so Jeanette and I had this dinner and it was like, look, I'm like this, you're like that. What does that mean? And what that meant was like embracing each other's gifts and an understanding of like, this is why, like, yeah, you would say, Jeanette would say, I do a bunch of crap work for Craig. I don't like it. Well, I would look at her and go, you're detail oriented. You fact check stuff. You do this. You're thorough. I'm fast. I don't, and like, no, I need that. That's not crap work. That's like, oh, well, I don't have that gift. And it's that idea of like, that's not unimportant because that's not, front facing. Like, man, we need people at all different, strengths and abilities, and then knowing who you are. Like, my idea of my me in the workforce is like way different than you because of like my upbringing with this. At 14, I went and sold baseball cards instead of got a job. And so wherever you're at, I think it shaped maybe some of who you are. And so that test was just, I think for me, instrumental in the understanding once again, and then leaning into certain things that like Jeanette, hey, I'm good at this, Jeanette, but you're good at this. And then starting listening. Jeanette was like, why don't you do all your phone meetings on one day? Like, why do you leave piles of clothes everywhere around the house instead of just put them away? Well, I don't even think about it. Well, just because you think about that doesn't mean I even think about that. It's not like I don't want it, but, and then me asking her for help in ways where I'm like, hey, I don't ask for help. It's like a quarterback. If you have no one to throw to or nobody to block or nobody to do any of that, like that's a pretty sucky game just by yourself. And it's like, yeah, you need a whole team. And oftentimes I love it. This Super Bowl this year, Julian Edelman got the MVP rather than Tom Brady. And that's pretty awesome because normally the quarterbacks get all the glory. And it's pretty cool when a defensive player gets it, like Malcolm Butler. No, did he get it? Or did Brady say that year he would give him the car or whatever because he made the game? I don't know. Regardless, it's just like embrace who you are and embrace like your giftings. And if you're in a marriage or if you're in a work relationship with somebody, instead of pushing up in that fight, really trying to figure out like, hey, going back to, no, I do this and this is why I don't do that. It's why I don't play that position. And so the things recently that I'm learning from my wife in this is also trying to see things from her perspective and see what I'm missing out on. My friendship with Dave, like I talk about, is me realizing here's a guy who's all heart and here's a guy like me that I've been all head for so many years. Like, I want to know. Like, some time I spent with Dave where I was like, hey, tell me why this hurts when somebody does this in your life. Because I know I've done this a lot. And it's like, tell me how that affects you. And when you start asking those kind of questions and trying to understand yourself and understand more other people, it makes a lot of sense. You can do a lot of greater work. You can be about better things. You can express yourself, I think, in better ways. Like this was the first year ever that Jenna and I, after 20 years, Jenna 1 year said, I can't do another 20 years like the first. All right. Well, what does that mean? What does that look like? All right. Well, here's a problem. Why don't we get out a calendar, a big wall size one, and put all the trips that you're gonna do, all the business stuff, all the ministry stuff, and I said, I'm going to pick a number, 25. And then I know when I hit that number, that's it. I'm going to put some order around my days, some structure. Like Jeanette's like, loves routine. I hate routine. But you know what? I got to lean in a little bit of that. Maybe you can be a little more flexible over here with your stuff. And that merger of both those things, like I talk about with the head and the heart, and like somewhere in the middle is the balance. So whether you're a pioneer today or you're a builder or you care less about a test like that or not, it's all about understanding that not everybody's like you. There's nobody else like you, but that's probably a good thing because, man, unless you're playing a solo sport, you're going to need other people. And that's the beauty that I've learned from this and I'm continuing to learn. So however that sits, I hope you enjoy. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for thinking through Craig Brain. This podcast is only a small summarized part of a larger conversation. To read the full story, check out www.craigbrain.com and follow @Craig Gross on whatever social suits your fancy.